Hello, good evening. Welcome to the show. This is The Couch. My name is Ama Pratt. It's a Thursday. This is a live show. We are actually live. We are coming to you from Pan-African TV right here in Abelemkpe, Accra. This being a Thursday, tonight is a hard talk edition of the show. And this evening, hopefully by the time we conclude with this conversation, today perhaps more than ever, I'm hoping for some conclusion to this issue that backs me no end. Our topic for conversation this evening is about the voting rights of deputy speakers. What's next after the Supreme Court ruling? That's our conversation for this evening. Let me quickly refresh our memories. Now, the parliament that we have presently is one that is throwing up a lot of new circumstances and new or perhaps strange happenings for us in Ghana. The parliament that we have currently is a split parliament, and so a lot of the occurrences in parliament are new to us. They are new to the parliamentarians, I dare say even new to the constitution. Now, after the Supreme Court ruling, a lot of issues have come up, issues of constitutional sovereignty as opposed to parliamentary sovereignty, and a whole lot of other issues. Our concern this evening on the show is what's next? What next in Parliament? What does this mean for us moving forward? What does this mean for parliamentary proceedings moving forward? What does this mean for us as Ghanaians in terms of our constitution, and more importantly in terms of our democracy as we move forward? So that's our conversation for this evening. I've already told you it's a live show, so you can join us via Facebook pages because we are streaming on Facebook. You can also join us via text. The text line will scroll on the screen, please. Feel free to ask any questions or make any contribution. In fact, we need you to join in this conversation. I am in distinguished company. This evening I have been privileged to be joined in studio by Honorable Amidu Chinya Isaku. He's Deputy Minister for Water and Sanitation. He's MP for Sisala East. Sisala East. Yes. Honorable, it's great to...
It's good to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's an honor to meet you for the first time.
Thanks.
I hope that after today, you and the couch will become one.
By God's grace, it will be.
Thank you. I'm happy to hear that. We also have with us in studio the Honorable Al-Hassan Suhini, MP for Tamale North. Great to see you again.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. You and the couch are one already.
Yeah, you already won.
Right. So let's start from the top, Honorables. Let's start from the top. And I was saying before we came on air that I wanted us to have, have a basis for the conversation and then forge ahead from the basis. So from where I sit, right, from where I sit as an outsider to parliamentary proceedings, I have been introduced to Order 1093, which seems to state categorically that standing orders of parliament bars a deputy speaker from casting a vote on matters for determination. So from where I sit, there's no confusion as to whether a deputy speaker can vote or cannot vote. It seems to me that standing orders in Parliament, specifically Order 1093, states in black and white that a deputy speaker cannot vote. Are we in agreement? I'll start with you, Honorable.
Well, thank you very much. Let me say good evening to viewers of your esteemed television, especially viewers from my constituency. Let me say good evening to all. Well, I quite agree with you that Standing Order 1093 says that a deputy speaker or any other member presiding shall not retain his original vote while presiding.
So you agree?
That is what the standing order says.
Okay.
But, the standing order is a less issue to the Constitution. If you look at, let me look at the Constitution. If you go to Article 1 of the Constitution, 2, it says that the Constitution shall be the supreme law of Ghana, and any other law found to be inconsistent with any provision of this Constitution shall, to the extent of the inconsistency, be void.
Right.
That is a provision of Article 1(2).
Right.
That the Constitution, this Constitution is the supreme law of Ghana.
Right.
And any other law that is found to be inconsistent to any provision of this Constitution, to the extent of the inconsistency, is void.
I appreciate that, and I thought we'll get that once we get to the Supreme Court ruling.
I'm trying to build a point that even though the provision in this one says that deputy speakers are not entitled to vote, as in Order 109(3) of the standing orders. Now, if you look at the footnote on the Order 109,
right,
it says voting in Parliament of Article 104 of the Constitution.
Okay.
So this particular provision is taken from Article 104 of the Constitution. So let me try to see if I can get Article 104 to see whether it is in tandem with the standing order. You know, I'm not a lawyer, so...
Oh, take your time.
I wouldn't be... So we have Article 104, which is voting in Parliament, which they have taken Order 109 from. Now, if you read Article 104(1), except as otherwise provided in this Constitution, matters in Parliament shall be determined by... So they've quoted all these things.
Right.
And then when you get to 104, I think 3, no, 2, it says, the Speaker shall have neither an original nor custom vote.
Right.
So if you read the whole Article 104, there's no mention of a deputy speaker. But this 09 is supposed to be coming from Article 104.
Right.
Which only talks about there is no original nor a custom vote for Speaker of Parliament. Now the Speaker of Parliament certainly is not same as Deputy Speakers of Parliament. So you see that Order 109, which is taken from Article 104, certainly is not in tandem.
I have my confusion, but I'm hoping that when his Honorable turn, he will clarify. I want to leave that job to Honorable, because immediately I can think of one or two things to say, you know, because I wanted something in there that would sharply contradict the standing order.
This contradicts it. Article go and look. I've just told you that Order 109 is taken from voting in Parliament of Article 104.
Right.
So this provision that bars the deputy speakers from voting is supposed to be emanating from Article 104 of the Constitution, which is the supreme law.
Right.
Now, when you go to 104 of the Constitution, there is no reading in there that bars deputy speakers from voting.
So you are saying contradiction by omission?
Yes. There is no provision in 104. So what is the 109 or the 109 as taken from Article 104 is complete.
So omission is what we are using.
Complete misrepresentation of
I would say omission simply. I mean, I wouldn't take it all the way to contradiction. I'll just say omission.
You see, it says that it talks about the Speaker shall neither have an original or a custom vote. That is the Speaker.
But Honorable,
but
I'm sorry that I'm doing this with you before Honorable comes in. Honorable, in that moment, the Deputy Speaker is Speaker.
No.
In that moment,
the Deputy Speaker is not Speaker.
Can never be Speaker.
No.
Appreciated.
The Deputy Speaker is not Speaker.
Right.
There are two different things. And now, let me going forward. Let me show you something. When you look at Article 96, 95, which talks about the election of a speaker. Let me show you why they are not the same. 95 says there shall be a Speaker of Parliament who shall be elected by the members of Parliament from among persons who are members of Parliament or who are qualified to be elected a member of parliament. So a speaker is elected among members of parliament or somebody from outside who is qualified to be a member of parliament. Now, when you read further, that is 95.1. When you go to 95.2, it says that the speaker shall vacate his office if he becomes a minister of state or a deputy minister. That is 95.2. Then if he resigns from the office by okay, it described now, but if the person is a member of parliament and you are elected speaker, you have to resign as member of parliament.
Okay.
If you become a deputy minister or a minister, you have to resign as speaker. But if you're a member of parliament who is elected as a speaker, you resign as member of parliament. You can continue to be a member of parliament, and we have seen it before. Okay. Honorable Joe Ajoho was member of parliament when he was elected speaker, as provided by the constitution. He had to resign as
so your point
now,
is that
I'm just trying to differentiate the two.
Right.
Now, when that is 95, who talks about the speaker who cannot be a member of parliament. Now, when you go to 96 of the constitution talks about deputy speakers,
right,
and says that the deputy speaker shall be elected from among members of parliament, but the two deputy speakers cannot come from the same party.
Right.
That is the provision 96. But they will remain members of parliament. So whereas in 95, the speaker cannot be a member of parliament, in 96, deputy speakers remain members of parliament.
Okay, points made. So your point is that
so the speaker is completely different from deputy speakers.
Appreciated.
And so when you go to 104 and they say the speaker has no original or custom vote, you cannot read that to mean
transfer that meaning to
deputy
a deputy
speakers.
Speaker. Points made. Absolutely. Let's hear from you, Honorable Suhuyini.
Well, you started on a basic question of whether we agree,
right,
on what Order 1093 means until the Supreme Court ruling came. And I will say, by and large, that both the majority and minority in the 8th Parliament, and even parliaments before the 8th Parliament, agreed with that provision of our standing orders and worked with it. In fact, as recently as the last attempt to get the e-levy passed, the deputy speaker, the first deputy speaker, clearly and boldly, without any, yes. Put it beyond doubt when he stated clearly that we all know that the person presiding doesn't vote. I mean, his voice and the video.
Okay, so hold on. Let's play that video and come back. Yeah. So stay with us. We'll play the video that the Honorable Suhuyini is referring to, and that is the video that says clearly, "I don't vote," by the Honorable Joe Wise. That's our first Deputy Speaker, of Parliament himself. Let's watch this and come back.
Is presiding, either the Deputy Speaker or a member who by necessity is elected from among members to preside. When it comes to the question of voting, it is very clear. Any time any of the deputy speakers or any other member elected to preside is in the chair, that member does not vote. That has never been in dispute. Any time a member is presiding, either the deputy speaker or a member who by necessity is elected from among members to preside. When it comes to the question of voting, it is very clear. Any time any of the deputy speakers or any other member elected to preside is in the chair, that member does not.
Back. So that was the Honorable Joe Wise, our first Deputy Speaker himself, saying categorically that he does not vote.
Exactly. So there's no question about that.
Right.
Until the Supreme Court ruled, the practice for some time now, maybe since the introduction of the 1992 Constitution, has been that the person presiding, like he himself said, or any of the deputy speakers, when they are presiding, do not vote. That is not something that we have debated in the past.
Honorable, let's hold on 1 minute. Honorable was just making a distinction between the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker to say that this rule specifically applies only to the Speaker and not to the Deputy Speaker. And the points that he makes, I mean, it sounds, you know, it sounds good. The point is that the Constitution or the standing orders goes to some extent to differentiate between the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker very clearly. And at the heart of that distinction or that differentiation is the fact of whether this person is a member of Parliament or not, which comes to representation, doesn't it? So, I mean, we all agree that the standing order says Speaker don't vote, but if there's this clear distinction, perhaps, are we just in uncharted waters?
I'll try and explain to you why there is no distinction and there shouldn't be any distinction.
Okay.
If you pick our standing orders and you turn to page 6.
Page 6.
Page 6 of our standing orders. Speaker is defined. And it says Speaker or Mr. Speaker includes a member presiding at a sitting. Speaker or Mr. Speaker includes a member presiding at a sitting. So the standing orders makes it clear that any time anyone is presiding over sittings, that person is Speaker or Mr. Speaker. Now, that may be standing orders, subject to Article 110 of the 1992 Constitution. So let's look at the Constitution and find out what the Constitution itself says.
Right.
We are not lawyers. We are all pretending to share our layman's opinion on what is written in English that we all taught in school.
Honorable, but let's go.
Yes, you know, so we are pretending and sharing our views on what we think the framers of the Constitution meant, and law is common sense.
Right.
And so, and since we can all read and write, we can apply common sense to what we deduce from the readings that are in the Constitution. So you look at Article 101, presiding in Parliament. That's the marginal note.
Right.
It says the Speaker shall preside in Parliament at all sittings, and in his absence, a Deputy Speaker shall preside. Now, I want us to take 3 words seriously here. The Speaker, preside, Deputy Speaker. I'll explain why the 3 are important, because in 102, you will find why the 3 are important. Remember already, in the procedures in Parliament, we are told either the Speaker can preside, any of the deputies can preside, or any member can preside.
Right.
So, in 101, you are told that the Speaker shall preside in Parliament at all sittings, and in his absence, a Deputy Speaker shall preside. So, I'm saying let's focus on Speaker, preside, and Deputy Speaker. In 102, where you are told how to determine a quorum, it then says a quorum of Parliament, apart from the person presiding. Here no longer talks about Speaker or Deputy Speaker.
Right.
Shall be 1/3 of all the members of Parliament. I mean, they say the Constitution should be interpreted like a living organism with different organs all feeding each other. So, where you have the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker given a role of presiding and given functions that they can do, when you come to 102, they are silent on the Speaker. They are silent on the Deputy Speaker. They only refer to a person presiding. So should we say that by the omission of the Speaker, by the omission of the Deputy Speaker, when any of them are presiding, then they cannot be said to be governed under this law? Remember already, we have been told by our standing orders in page 6 that the person presiding is Mr. Speaker. The person presiding at all times is said to be Mr. Speaker. Now, let's even go into the substantive issues more. If you look at 110 of the 1992 Constitution, it says that subject to the provisions of this Constitution, Parliament may by standing orders regulate its own procedures. Now, the argument of maybe the Supreme Court and our friends in the MPP has been that, and my brother made that point a while ago, that everything that is in the standing orders is subjected to the provisions in the Constitution.
Right.
Fair. But the Supreme Court is suggesting that 1093 is inconsistent with the Constitution. But let us again pay attention to the words used in 110. It says, subject to the provisions of this Constitution. I have read the 29-page judgment. Nowhere in the arguments have they indicated to us one provision that 109 is against. Because it says subject to provisions and not subject to our interpretations of the provisions.
Let me read this here. It says here that the court, in its judgment, also declared as unconstitutional Order 1093 of the Standing Orders of Parliament, which barred a deputy speaker from casting a vote on matters of determination. That declaration raised the question of whether the court could interfere in the operations of Parliament or what has been termed as the parliamentary doctrine. In answering that question, the court held that the country has over the years practiced constitutional sovereignty as opposed to parliamentary sovereignty. Now, in view of that, the court held that the 1992 Constitution granted it the power to declare any act or any arm or agency of government which violated the 1919 Constitution as null and void. I understand what you're saying. Up until now, we are being given the doctrine. We haven't been shown exactly what
which provision is 109, you know, in contravention of. There is no provision. They have not stated that it is against Article 104. It is against Article 103 because there is no such provision in the Constitution. What they have argued in the ruling is that their interpretation of 104 is their interpretation of 104. It is not a provision as demanded in 110 that subject to the provisions of this Constitution and not the interpretation of the provisions in this Constitution.
That's a brilliant argument to make. If Honorable knows of a specific
provision that 1093, because you see, Amma, and it is important because
to get the basic move ahead.
But you see, it's important because if you look at 110, what it is saying is that Parliament has the authority under 110 to formulate its own rules, but those, you know, rules that they will use to govern their should not contradict a provision in the 1992 Constitution. So if you say that our provision under 1093 is against the 1992 Constitution, it's unconstitutional, you need to point to the provision specific
let's ask specific questions. Honorable, please take us to the specific provisions that are unconstitutional.
Honorable Sohine is my very good friend, and
I'm happy to hear it. It means we won't have any drama today.
No. He's a good guy.
No, don't surprise me, please.
He's a good guy. But you see, can you point to any part of the Constitution, any article in this Constitution that says that deputy speakers are barred from voting in Parliament?
Oh, Honorable, no. Has to just go there. Give it to me.
Listen.
You know?
You see, the Supreme Court has the mandate of interpreting the Constitution. Now, there is no provision in the 1992 Constitution that bars deputy speakers from voting. But there is a provision in the Constitution that bars a speaker from voting, which is Article 104, 104.3.
So we are back to this issue of omission.
Yes. I'm just trying to explain.
I thought
now,
you were just going to get this and then I'll proceed. You get your second
bite. Simple one. I don't get your second bite. Let me finish with the points I was making. Otherwise, I will lose my chain.
I need for him to. No, please don't lose your chain. That's very important.
There's no chain to be lost.
Chain of thought.
Listen to my argument.
Honorable, take us to the specific provisions, then we can make progress. Because at the end of it, that's the most important.
You see, listen to me. When the Supreme Court is interpreting the Constitution, there are two things that happens. Either there is a provision in the Constitution which a lesser law, like the standing orders, have offended, or there is no such provision even in the Constitution. So I am saying that when you go to the 1992 Constitution, there is nothing that bars deputy speakers from voting.
So the omission that we spoke about earlier,
it is the speaker who is barred from voting. Now, my brother was making a point in reference to Article 102,
right,
which talks about. Now we need to be very clear about 102 and 104. In 102, if you look at the footnote there, 102 is quorum to do business. Now they say the one presiding cannot be counted because at most times the Speaker of Parliament is the one who presides. It is in his absence that the Deputy Speaker or somebody else, a member of Parliament, can preside. And the Speaker of Parliament is not a member of Parliament. So when you are going to determine quorum, because the Speaker is not a member of Parliament, that is why in 102 it is provided that in order to make the 1/3 to form quorum, the person presiding, and that place they've been very specific, the person presiding, which means it could be the Speaker, it could be a Deputy Speaker, it could be any member of Parliament. You will not be counted to form the quorum.
Honorable.
But when you go to 10, I pointed something out to you, but I don't know whether
that was Article 104 of the
standard
Constitution.
order 109.
109, rather.
Do you have it?
Oh, the 109 theory, the same
109.
109 theory, the same.
Look at the footnote there.
Right.
What have they written there? Voting in Parliament of Article 104.
Right.
104. Right. So this thing has been carved out of 104.
No, you've made this point.
And 104, there is no provision that the Deputy Speaker cannot vote. Show me any part of 104.
Okay.
So if you make a law from 104 in the standard orders, which contradicts the 104 because there is no provision there that bars a Deputy Speaker from voting, it means it is contrary to, it is inconsistent.
I appreciate what you're saying. Let's make progress. You see, my headache, and I was saving this for towards the end of our conversation because, and we will get there. My headache now is that in a very peculiar situation, you know, this peculiar situation of a split parliament, if we don't sort of agree on some blacks and whites, we might find ourselves in trouble.
No,
and I find that some of the arguments are a little stretched. You see, that's why I was asking for us to direct the conversation to specific provisions, because it makes it easy for everybody. Honorable has directed us to specific provisions. So far,
I'm just saying that
if you are declaring something unconstitutional,
I'm saying that Order 109 is driven from or is derived from Article 104. And I'm telling you that in Article 104 in the Constitution, there is nothing there that bars deputy speakers from voting. So why do you make a law that is driven from omission? Yes.
Okay.
It's inconsistent
now.
It's inconsistent.
Yes. Can I proceed now? So let me. I know. I think that you had it all.
Now, Amma, it's important for me to also ask this basic question, rhetorical question. Is there any parliament in the world, my brother can tell me one, where a member of parliament elected to represent a constituency, when it comes to voting to take decision in parliament, that member, by virtue of being the speaker or presiding in the absence of the speaker, is denied the right to vote?
Valid question.
There is no country in the world. You can go to the UK, you can go to the US, you can go to Nigeria, Kenya. Once you are elected a member of parliament, if you are a speaker or deputy speaker, at worst you have the casting vote right. They cannot say because you are a speaker or a deputy speaker, once you sit in the chair and there is a decision to be made, you representing a group of people should be denied the right to express the will or the feeling of the people.
Okay.
There is no country, unless you can tell me one. So why will Ghana's case be different?
Points made.
Well, I'll tell you why.
If you could also round up for us. Please do. Because you have quite a number of issues to deal with.
Let me flow. Yes, I get it. Let me try.
Honorable Flo.
You know, I will try and answer him, but before that, I want us to look at some of the issues that he has raised. I already have pointed to the fact that anyone presiding is Mr. Speaker.
Right.
And I've pointed to 101 and 102 and how Deputy Speaker and Speaker are used interchangeably there. It still doesn't convince my brother that the two, once they are presiding, or any member is presiding, assumes the responsibility of Speaker. I will take him again because I said the Constitution is like a living organism, right. We are told, and all the organs speak to each other. So if you look at 297H of the Constitution, it says, whereas directing or empowering a public officer to do any act or thing, or otherwise, whereas directing or empowering a public officer to do any act or thing, or otherwise, applying to him by the designation of his office, include his successors in office and all his deputies and all other assistants. I'll go over it again. Whereas directing or empowering a public officer to do any act or thing, or otherwise, applying to him by the designation of his office. So if you have an office and there are ways that direct you or empower you to do a thing or otherwise, your successors are bound by those directions. Your deputies and all your assistants, when they assume that role, are bound by it. Again, when you look at 2952 of the Constitution. So maybe before I make that point, let me just share 2952. In this Constitution and in any other law, a reference to the holder of an office by the term designating his office shall, unless the context otherwise requires, be construed as including a reference to a person for the time being lawfully acting in or performing the functions of that office. I'll go over it again. A reference to the holder of an office by the term designating his office shall, unless the context otherwise requires, be construed as including a reference to a person for the time being lawfully acting. So whatever powers the Speaker has, anytime anyone assumes that office lawfully acting in that capacity, is still to perform the functions that the Speaker is supposed to be performing, is bound by all the privileges there. And that takes me to the question that he asked about whether there's a country where a member of parliament, is denied the voting rights. Look, let me make this point clear. We in the minority, and many of us in the NDC, have never argued that the deputy speakers do not have the right to vote. They do. In fact, on the day that we prevented the first deputy speaker from voting, the second deputy speaker voted. Every time there is a vote to be taken in this parliament and in previous parliaments, when deputy speakers are not presiding, they take part in voting. You
haven't answered my question.
Let me finish.
I hope that we'll let the video of,
deputy speakers have the right to represent their constituents and to vote when the vote is called, when they are not presiding. We have a history, and our history is peculiar. It cannot be that we must adopt everything that others, around the world have adopted. There's a reason why we have a speaker, and we have decided that we want the speaker to be impartial. And that is why it is even required that when you are a member of parliament and you are elected as a speaker, you must necessarily resign your position as a member of parliament, because there is a certain expectation that you will be impartial, you will not take part in the debate, and you will be, a fair umpire conducting debates and business of the house. So once there is that expectation of that office, anybody who assumes that office has to bear the responsibility of carrying out to meet that same expectation. So our history is what informed our decision in past republics. I mean, before the Fourth Republic, of course, speakers of parliament had the right to vote, but we realized it did not serve us well in the past, and that is why we decided to go the way that we are going with the 1992 constitution. And let us understand something clearly, that the deputy speaker or any of the members, when they are presiding, their role, their representation role that they are to play as members of parliaments of constituencies go beyond just voting. And that is, in my view, the mistake that I find in the ruling of the Supreme Court.
So we are
representation of a constituency is so big to be reduced to just an exercise of voting.
But the biggest representation is decision making.
Yes.
That is the biggest. Any member of parliament in parliament, the biggest role you are supposed to play on behalf of your constituents is decision making.
No.
And that is voting.
No.
When the decision is supposed to be made, because as of the talking, people can talk, others will not talk.
At the end of the day,
you have to make a decision.
Yes,
and in making that decision, every member
whatever it is, the point I am making is that representation is bigger and broader than just the issue of voting.
So let's
and so when the Supreme Court reduces, the role of a member of parliament in representing his constituency to just a vote, it tells you that it is perhaps influenced by only the current times.
Happenings now.
Exactly.
But Honorable,
yes.
I appreciate what you're saying.
Right.
And in all fairness and in all truth, that is the crust of the matter. The happenings today is what is influencing all of these decisions. However, I see the sense in what Honorable is saying. At the end of the day, the only reason why this issue of a majority or minority matters is because it's a numbers game, isn't it?
It's a numbers game. It's a numbers game, I understand. But I'm saying that you cannot appropriate and reprobate at the same time. There are reasons why when the speaker is coming to parliament to assume his seat, members are called upon to rise. Whether it is the deputy speaker or the second deputy speaker, or the first or the second. When they are coming to assume their seats, we rise. When we rise and they to make a contribution in the interest of our constituents, and they do not recognize us, we respect that. In fact, they have the power to even get the marshals to walk us out, even though they were elected just as we were elected to represent constituencies. How come they get those powers when they assume the chair, but are not willing to,
rights and responsibility. You can't enjoy the rights
without the responsibility of being fair, of being an umpire and staying out of the game.
I have some issues to raise before we get there.
I want us to get into
we'll get there. But you see, my brother is forcefully making a point about the fact that members of parliament have more roles to play other than voting. But let me emphasize that the biggest responsibility of every member of parliament is in decision making on behalf of your constituents. All the debate, all the talk, at the end of the day, you have to make a decision on every matter that comes before parliament.
Bottom line.
And every member of parliament who represents a constituency must not be denied his right to make a decision when it is time for decision making. Now I ask a simple question: whether he has any idea about a country in the world where a member of parliament lawfully elected to represent a constituency by virtue of being a speaker or a deputy speaker is denied the right to vote. There is no such country in the world. In UK, The Speaker is an elected member of Parliament, and he has the right to vote the original and custom. What is the right?
Is there a country where a speaker is expected to resign when he's elected as speaker?
So
let's make
Is there a country like that?
listen.
Peculiar circumstances dictate. No, you are also interjecting.
Let me make my point.
You are also interjecting. So accept.
No. It's important. We'll get there. But
There's no country in the world where the speaker is expected to resign when he's elected.
This is the crux of the matter.
When he was a member of Parliament. There's no country like that.
I am telling you that across the globe, there are some countries where the Speaker can be a member of Parliament.
Yes.
The other countries, the Speaker is not a member of Parliament.
Yes.
In every country where the Speaker is not a member of Parliament, he has no right to vote. But in every country where a Speaker or a Deputy Speaker is a member of Parliament, he has the right to vote. Either an original voting right or a custom voting right. You go to Nigeria, you go to Kenya, every country, you go to the US. There is no country, and I have them here. If you want, I'll read the laws of the various countries where deputy speakers or speakers who are members of Parliament have the right to vote.
Right.
If you don't have the original right to vote, but you have a custom vote.
Right.
So in Ghana, our peculiar case is that the Speaker of Parliament is not a member of Parliament. And that is why in Article 104, it is said that the Speaker has no original or custom vote.
Right.
But it does not talk about the deputy speakers. And so bringing Order 109 in the standing orders, which is inconsistent with the Constitution, certainly cannot stand the test of any interpretation.
Point me.
What about 295?
No, Honorable.
2952. What is 297?
What is that?
297H.
And
there's nothing in 297H. There's nothing in 2952.
And what at the beginning I made a very important point that he's refusing. I know he's deliberately doing it. When you look at the Constitution, Article 95 and 96 are two distinct. One talks about the Speaker and how he's elected, and what happens when he's elected. If he's a member of Parliament, he resigns. The 96 talks about deputy speakers. If a deputy speaker must be a member of Parliament.
Right. Honorable, these are all fantastic points that you made already.
It gives distinction between a speaker and deputy speakers. They can never be the same. A speaker can never be the same as deputy speaker.
Can we enter Supreme Court?
So I am talking about the provisions of 297 and 295.
Honorable,
I've just told you that. Tell me a country in this world where a member of Parliament.
And you tell me a country in this world where a member of Parliament, when elected as speaker, is expected to resign. There's no such country. So, but it doesn't make it wrong.
Their constitution defines
it does not make it wrong.
Once you're a member of Parliament, your right to vote can never be denied.
It doesn't make it wrong. It doesn't make it wrong.
In Ghana, you are forcing that a deputy speaker who is a member of Parliament.
See, that's the point we have made. That a deputy speaker has the right to vote, but not when he is presiding.
All these countries,
I'm also using my interpretation.
We are having the conversation on the voting rights of deputy speakers. What is next after the Supreme Court ruling? My guest in the studio are the very Honorable Amidu. Isaku, Deputy Minister for Water and Sanitation and MP for Sisala East, and also the Honorable Al-Hassan Suhini, MP for Tamale North. Okay, so I want us to get into Parliament, Honorables, and I'll read this, quickly. As I'm reading, we can let the video of what happened while Deputy Speaker tried to vote to roll at the same time. I don't want us to waste time. So it says here, it was the considered view of the court that deputy speakers were members of Parliament elected as representatives of constituencies, and therefore causing them to lose their casting vote would amount to disenfranchising their constituents in Parliament. To cause a member to forfeit their vote in Parliament merely on account of having to preside over the business of the House in the Speaker's absence would unfairly disenfranchise not only the presiding member, but also their constituents. Such an interpretation would likely give rise to certain perverse outcomes. So we are back to this issue of numbers and representation. I think that this is the crux, of the matter in the view of the Supreme Court. That at the end of the day, these people were elected to represent their people, so let them represent their people. Now, from a layman's point of view, and this is me sitting outside of Parliament, sitting outside of the court, I'm just thinking, if the rule or the provision is a member presiding at a sitting, if that's all we are doing, looking at a member that's presiding at a sitting, can't we look outside of Parliament for this member to preside? I mean, considering our peculiar circumstances today, if all we are looking for is a member to preside, can we not look outside of Parliament for a member to preside? Must we look within Parliament if indeed the issue is this confused and this murky?
Well, for now, we can't do anything because the Constitution tells us, or the Constitution prescribes the people who we should use to preside at every point in time. The Speaker, any of the deputies, or any member of Parliament. So you cannot look outside Parliament to get a person to preside. The problem we have, and that is why I agree with the minority leader, that this ruling seemed like judicial support for the passage of the e-levy.
Don't say that.
I agree with him totally when he says that. Because you see, every analysis of the judgment is tailored to the current problem of e-levy. Beyond that, you do not see how the judgment will resolve the question of voting rights of members presiding. Because you see, the question before the Supreme Court was about the right of a presiding officer or deputy speaker to vote. That was the question. Right. So the question was of voting rights. But the answer, in my view, shouldn't have been reduced to voting as a representation of constituency.
You think that there were more weightier considerations?
When you want to look at the representation role that a member is supposed to perform as a member of Parliament of a constituency, it goes beyond voting. So to say that denying a person presiding the right to vote amounts to being unfair to his constituents and denying him the opportunity to represent his constituents is a narrow view of what representation of a constituency entails.
And I appreciate what you're saying. You're absolutely right. However, is it not a narrow situation that took us to court?
It's a narrow, but you see, I'm saying, you see, the Supreme Court adds to our laws.
Right.
So every ruling that they make becomes, part of our laws. So you want them to give out a ruling that can stand the test of time, that can satisfy different conditions and different times. So when the ruling is that narrow and it is reduced, representation is reduced to just voting, then you do not satisfy other questions about representing constituents and presiding in Parliament at the same time. I'm saying our country has a history, and it's not like we have not been on this road before, where speakers had the right to vote.
Right.
Why did the framers of the 1992 Constitution, after looking at our history, decide that we want our speaker now to be an impartial speaker. Our speaker not to take part in deliberations. Our speaker not to vote.
Right.
And you see, there is a certain, absurdity when it comes to even the issue of calling for a division. Now we are told, and we all agree, that when you are presiding, and I think the first deputy speaker made that point, you do not vote because you call the vote. So you call for a voice vote. There are 3 of us here. I call for a voice vote. 2 of you say ayes. 1 says nay.
Right.
Then I am the speaker and I say the ayes have it. Then you rise up and you say, no, Mr. Speaker, I do not agree that the ayes have it. Let's call for a division. Because in my view, the nays were louder than the ayes. So let's count the voices that responded to their call to vote. Then at that point, when they finish counting the ayes, I say, let me derope and also join the nays, and you count me. That is absurd because the voice did not take part in the vote. Why do you now want to descend to be counted when we want to count the voices that voted?
However,
yes,
the reason why this issue went to the Supreme Court is because of, like you say, a very narrow situation, or like I say, a narrow situation. Now, if the Supreme Court had not dealt with the narrowness, the specificity of the issue that went to it, any ruling would not have been fit for purpose.
No, it would have been. It would have been. You see,
it had to address a narrow issue. No,
they ventured into addressing the issue of representation and not voting, but they equated voting to representation. And once you talk about representation of constituents, then you need to broaden it. And I believe when you do, you realize that the cosmetic denial of a vote when you are presiding is not enough to disenfranchise your, or to disadvantage, let me put it that way, to disadvantage your constituents. Because you see, as at the time you are presiding, you also will be playing a certain key role for the state.
Right.
On behalf of your constituents, in this case, the whole of Ghana. Right. Because once you are speaker, you are supposed to see Ghana as your constituency.
I mean, your neutrality is very important.
Exactly. Once you are presiding, your neutrality is important. And that is why, in 101, 102, and then 297, 295, we are told that these responsibilities will definitely come with certain rights.
Honorable, this issue is a very dicey one. this is a very dicey one. Honorable,
it's not dicey.
It is dicey.
The case is a very simple matter.
No, it's not.
And let me tell you something. You mark my words and mark it down. This ruling by the Supreme Court will stand the test of time.
Really?
I'm telling you. Let the NDC in the next 30 years get power. And they will begin to speak the truth at that point. Look, there's a point I keep telling you, but you seems not to be getting me.
Tell me, Honorable.
And that is Article 104 I've been talking about.
Omission.
It talks about the speaker who has no vote. It doesn't talk about the deputy speakers.
Honorable, it's not a strong point. Omission in
Listen.
Honorable.
If Article 104 bars the speaker from voting, and then you drive a subsidiary legislation and use Article 104 to deny somebody the right to vote, is it not inconsistent?
But we are talking about the member presiding.
Let me tell you. Let me just give you some few scenarios in other countries.
Oh, Honorable,
very important.
Help us.
It will help us to let you know that
we have a very peculiar circumstance.
It is the same everywhere. It is the same everywhere. In Nigeria, if you are a presiding officer in the National Assembly, when there is vote, you don't have an original vote, but you have a casting vote. Look at their law. In Australia, in Canada, in Kenya, everywhere, a presiding member who presides at the National Assembly or a parliament, and you are a member of parliament, you are not denied the right to vote. Even if you don't have an original vote, but you have a custom vote. So is it only in Ghana that you have a parliament where members of parliament who are provided under Article 96 to be elected deputy speakers are denied the right to vote.
Okay, let's make progress. I want us to watch the video.
Maybe just a quick question to my honorable. So it says, if you look at 101, it says a speaker shall preside in parliament at all sittings, and in his absence, a deputy speaker shall preside. End of story.
Right.
But around this table, we have all agreed that any member in the absence of this two can preside.
Right.
Because it's provided in 102.
Right.
Where is it provided?
A member presiding.
It didn't say a member of parliament.
A member presiding.
No, it says 102 says a quorum of parliament apart from the person presiding shall be 1/3 of the members of parliament. And they have told us that the one to preside is the speaker and the deputy speaker.
Right.
But we all around this table have agreed that in the absence of any of the deputy speakers and the speaker, a member can preside. Why? Because it's in our standing orders.
Right.
But it's not here.
In the constitution.
Should we say it is against the constitution?
Well,
because it is not stated that a member can preside.
If somebody goes to court for interpretation, the Supreme Court will have the right.
See the absurd levels that we are getting to. Because it is not in this constitution, we can no longer use it.
It gets even more murkier. Let's watch this video. And this is a video.
Legislation must be consistent with the constitution.
I am saying that today, if anybody tells you that no member of parliament can preside in the absence of the speaker or deputy speaker,
let's watch this video. Let's watch this video. And this video
is
is of the first deputy speaker of parliament. After the Supreme Court ruling, these are some words that he shared. And MCI, this is the very last video. I want us to skip all the videos.
You have
and go
but there was a video you were supposed to show, you didn't show.
There's so many videos I was supposed to show. Honorable. Let's go straight to the last video of the first deputy speaker and what he said after the Supreme Court ruling. Stay with us.
He said those things before the ruling.
Vote. And I did not participate in the voice vote, but I insisted that I be counted as a member of parliament present to constitute the quorum before a decision was taken. Indeed, this decision affirms that position that I took. I find that very refreshing. Soon after that decision, a former Speaker of Parliament called me and he said, I call you to congratulate you for being bold to take this decision, because that is how the frontiers of the law are expanded. Matters that have never arisen are now in the fore because of the numbers we have in the chambers. So anytime there is disagreement, as I've said already, I will interpret the rules and the law as I understand it. I encourage people who disagree with me to boldly state their position, and if need be, refer to the appropriate body like the Supreme Court. So I'm very glad that indeed that clarity has been given. This vote, and I did not participate in the voice vote, but I insisted that I be counted as a member of parliament present to constitute the quorum before a decision was taken. Indeed, this decision affirms that position that I took. I find that very refreshing. Soon after that decision, a former Speaker of Parliament called me and he said, I call you to congratulate you for being bold to take this decision, because that is how the frontiers of the law are expanded. Matters that have never arisen are now in the fore because of the numbers we have in the chambers. So anytime there is disagreement, as I've said already, I will interpret the rules and the law as I understand it. I encourage people who disagree with me to boldly state their position, and if need be, refer to the appropriate body like the Supreme Court. So I'm very glad that indeed that clarity has been given. This vote, and I did not participate in the voice vote, but I insisted that I be counted as a member of parliament present to constitute the quorum before a decision was taken. Indeed, this decision affirms that position that I took. I find that very refreshing. Soon after that decision, a former Speaker of Parliament called me and he said, I call you to congratulate you for being bold to take this decision, because that is how the frontiers of the law are.
From that break, that was our first speaker, our first deputy speaker, sharing his views. And I mean, interesting times ahead for all of us, you know, because our deputy speaker, and correct me if you think that my, you know, thoughts of what he seems to be saying is that moving on, I think that I have done something that has brought us to, you know, some constitutional light bulb moment, so to speak. I am going to pursue, you know, this way of doing things outside the ambit of our orders, and hopefully my actions will lead us into such more, you know, for lack of a better way of putting it, but will literally take us back into the Supreme Court every now and then because of a truth. The peculiar situation that we find ourselves today in Parliament means that most of our standing orders will not be enough.
No, they're enough. A lot of
they
them
are not enough, Honorable. Let's be realistic.
But what is the work?
We never expected a Parliament that would be hanged. Honorable.
That is their work. So if more goes there is good.
The framers.
You want them to be sitting and taking salary of that work.
Honorable, let's just be real with ourselves. The truth is that in drafting our standing orders, in drafting our constitution, we did not envisage this. We did not see this coming.
Let me tell you an interesting
story
on the constitution.
We do not have provisions that deal with a specific situation. That's the truth. That's why I would have hoped that all of us would deal with issues moving forward, sticking to black and white. But if you are going to be doing interpretations and wanting to impute meanings and hang on omissions, Honorable, I think we are in trouble. So what's the way forward for us in Parliament?
I think that...
I think we are in trouble.
Yes, I agree with you. And I think that we are missing a very...
the way forward.
It's a golden opportunity.
There's no problem.
Yes, I'll address the way forward. But we are missing a golden opportunity as a country. We could have used the situation that we have today to enrich and strengthen parliamentary practices and procedures in this country.
Right.
But unfortunately, it seems operatives of our government and maybe some other influences are rather collaborating to further weaken Parliament that is already a baby when it comes to the three arms of government.
Right.
This is our moment to strengthen practices and procedures in Parliament. Unfortunately, if we are not careful and we dwell on a democracy that wants to win at all times, a government that is, you know, determined to have its way or no other way, and will go at any length, even it includes judicial length, to get their way, we are going to miss the opportunity of enriching parliamentary practices and procedures. And I agree with you that it doesn't look very good.
No,
it looks very dangerous the way we are going. But
it doesn't look good.
You see, I think we have to get one thing clear. When the deputy speaker says he's going to interpret it the way he understands it, he has started. In fact, only this week, I think about 2 or 3 days ago, I had a problem with him when I raised the issue of quorum. Just going in line with the Supreme Court ruling and the Constitution 102 that said that a quorum of Parliament apart from the person presiding shall be 1/3 of the members of Parliament. And then 48 says the presence of at least 1/3 of all members of Parliament besides the person presiding shall be necessary to constitute a quorum of the House. And 2 is especially relevant. It says if at the time of sitting a member takes notice or objection that there are present in the House besides the person presiding less than 1/3 of the number of all the members of Parliament, and after an interval of 10 minutes a quorum is not present, the person presiding shall adjourn. It says shall adjourn the House without question put until the next sitting day. So I think about 2 days ago I noticed that we were not satisfying Article 102 and we're not satisfying Order 48.2. When I raised the issue, he agreed, admitted it, called for the bells to be rung. After 10 minutes, in fact, after 25 minutes, when I rose to draw his attention to it, that we still did not have the numbers and he was mandated to adjourn the House, he ignored me. In the end, the House proceeded. Protests, I mounted protests as much as I could, but he ignored me. That is what he means when he says he will now interpret it the way.
I mean, you were forewarned.
But you see, so, but is that a healthy practice of democracy? Is that a healthy practice of democracy? In one breath, we say let's go according to the spirit and letter. Let's use omissions to make. In another breath, we say, oh, we can vary our own procedures. We can. Oh, I mean, what was his excuse later on? That it was private members' business that was happening, and so you needed to allow. It didn't say in the Constitution that when it is private members' business, you shouldn't adjourn the house.
Right.
But you see, let us use this opportunity, in my view, and I'm appealing to my brother that we must take advantage, especially because we have chosen to be parliamentarians. Others are contributing in other ways, as far as our politics is concerned. But once we have chosen to be parliamentarians, I think this is, a moment that we may never have in history, or at least for a very long time to come. And we must take advantage of this moment to build our parliament in such a way that, in future, it will be referred to as that, how do they call it? That Kairos moment. Is that the word? When everything changed about Ghana's parliamentary democracy. But unfortunately, it looks like we are missing the point. We are playing politics and playing petty, and playing just, if you like, winner takes it all kind of democracy. And we may lose that opportunity to enrich parliamentary practice in this country if care is not taken.
I mean, absolutely. Honorable, I'll let you come in, but let's bring in the viewers a little bit, and then you'd come in. Let's take some of the views from our viewers. This one says, "Hi, I'm MLT, the poet. I'm a students activist. I'm interested in the issue you are dealing with, but the issue is that I don't agree with Honorable saying that it's not nice for the deputy speakers to vote because they are also representing their constituents. And for that matter, they have to come up and speak on their behalf. Let us not also forget that the Constitution uses a definite article, which is the Speaker, meaning it's much concerned about the one man who has no interest in the issues being raised before Parliament whenever they are dealing with such motions." Okay. This one says, "Hi, this is Seyedu Bamson Jr. watching you from Tumu in the Upper West region."
That's close to.
Right. Honorable Amidu China is always the best. We are so proud of him. May Almighty Allah answer all your prayers. This one says, "Please, can a presiding judge on a case in court be a lawyer representing one party in that same case he or she is presiding on?" And this is from A.A. Jalil from from Tamale North. I think it's the same. Well, that's a nice.
That is from his constituency.
Right. Okay. So this one says, "Good evening. I'm really enjoying the program this evening. The issue about whether deputy speaker should vote or not has a great consequence that needs to be taken seriously because it's going to pave way for the minority to always shoot down any policy of the majority if they don't have the numbers. This they have shown within this week. Even though one independent candidate decided to do business with the majority. His name is Ebenezer Youngson from Koforidia. Now, this one says, "Good evening, Pan-African TV. MPP commentators find it very difficult to defend government's policies after all their grammar. They are using the judiciary now to push for e-levy, which will still not wash. You think governance is mouth-mouth? Good evening, Honorable Suhini Asida Papa, listening online from Delta State." Now, this one says, "Good evening to you, Amma, and your panelists. My regards to Honorable Chinea. Please ask Honorable Suhini who qualifies to vote in Parliament. Also, ask him whether it sounds good if his constituents are prevented from representation due to somebody's interest." His name is Desert Greener, DBI constituency. This one says, "Good evening, Amma. My regards to my able MP, Honorable Al-Hassan Suhini. In fact, he is one of a kind. I am just encouraging the minority to stand their ground." His name is Ibrahim, Tamale North constituency. Now, this one, okay, so these ones are just, you're just sending us smiling faces. "I am hurt to hear the MPP man comparing Ghana to other countries. Our constitution and our way and our standing orders are different. My name is Albert from Paga. The MPP are interested in the deputy speaker's voting, but they forget that but they have denied a whole constituency from voting in the general election. This is all about the e-levy. Our leaders are elected to serve the people, not their parties. This one says, good evening. I do agree with my honorable MP for Sisala East constituencies that an important responsibility of MPs in decision making in Parliament is to vote. However, such decisions should be in the interest of the people they represent, not their personal interest. My question is, has my honorable MP for Sisala East made any consultation in his constituency before taking a side on this deadly e-levy? His name is Jasu from Tumu.
Oh, I know him. He's not in the constituency.
You know him.
I went on radio. I went on radio and talked about e-levy, and people made phone.
No, it's not about talking. You just consult.
That is a consultation.
What's the how?
Tell them you.
Good evening.
Is consultation going on radio to tell them about it? Are you serious?
Good evening, Honorable Amidu. In fact, you look so gorgeous. May Allah bless you more. Honorable has just made it clear that the deputy speaker doesn't vote. 1990 Constitution we respect from Kalibi Yahara Moro. Honorable, I think there's a point at which you say thank you. I think
he knows him too. I'm sure he knows him too. Or he knows her too.
Right. This one says, good evening, Amma. Please, the voting rights of speakers emanates from past constitutions when Ghanaians asked for speakers instead of a governor chairing the legislative council. Okay, this is some useful piece of information. This one says, in fact, I am very disappointed with the Supreme Court ruling. We are in trouble. His name is John from Wa. Okay, I think I should go to. Okay, this one says, Amma, and the MPP man is running away from the standing orders of Parliament, allowing him to dishonestly deceive Ghanaians to say no. Okay, right. You add other things, but I think I'll leave it. I'll leave it there. Let's get on to Facebook.
Are already making him uncomfortable.
I know.
Right.
There are lots of views now. Suleiman Abdul Rahim from Tamale says they are all making valid arguments. It's just that our laws and the Constitution are contradictory. There should be amendments to the laws and the Constitution. This one says, Amma, please greet my honorable member for me and Honorable Al Hassan Suhini for this education to the public. His name is Mustafa Muhammad Nuruddin in Tamale North. Now, this one, Shei Aziz says, Honorable Amidu China is making us proud. This one says, okay, so you are talking about petroleum prices. I'm skipping that because that's not our conversation this evening.
But it's important to Rama.
It is important. I agree. In fact, but today when I was buying food, it wasn't easy for me at all. I want us to have that conversation next week. It deserves a whole show.
It is, yes.
This one says the fraternity of the ruling MPP are somehow confused. MPP 2024. Okay, so right. Okay, I'm going to skip that one too. This one says, please, good evening. Please, I want to know if the deputy speaker collected his salary as a speaker now, would he ask for a right to vote because he represents a constituency? Now I'm asking about he's going to receive deputy speaker salary again.
No, he doesn't receive deputy speaker salary.
Right.
The speaker retire on his salary. Deputy speakers don't retire on their salary.
Okay. Now, this one is from Suleiman Abdul Rahim in Tamale. The one who sent that was Wala Amekuji, I think. Okay. And this one says, the MP's insights of the Constitution and the laws are just brilliant. They have both done a great job. This one is from Ku Mensa Pila. He says, Nana Baumia is making... Okay, no, stay on topic, please. This one says, Sisala East is proud of you, Honorable. His name is Walatu Isaku. Abbas says, brilliant submissions. Wala Amekuji says, I love your program. I'm watching live in Anloga district of Volta. Thank you for watching. Watching you live from Dobelo. Greetings to both of the honorables. And this from Michael Kwesi Makumba. Right. So most of the comments, honestly, seems to be praising both of you. I think that the viewers think that you have done justice to the issues, which is great. We have quite a number of, views coming in. If we have time, we'll try and attend to. But Honorable, come in.
Yes.
What's the way forward? Honorable, do you agree that we are in serious...
No. I mean, there are simple matters that have been... There's a very small constitutional matter that has been interpreted by... And I was trying to tell you a short deviation from this. When I was Deputy Regional Minister in Upper West, and then my minister was suspended. Right. And the president, in suspending the minister, asked me to act. And then the minority leader, and then Honorable Ayaraga, they spoke to the media. They said it was unconstitutional, it was not right, it was contrary to the law. And in fact, I got worried and I called the Deputy Chief of Staff. I said, but the president is a constitutional lawyer. He knows why he has done that. And in fact, Honorable Ayaraga spoke to City News and he said, I cannot even be there for and act as minister for even 2 hours. Now, when you go and look at Article 97 of the Constitution, 79 of the Constitution, which talks about a Deputy Minister of State, it says that the President, in consultation with the Minister, appoints a Deputy Minister to assist the Minister. And I think that was the article they were referring to. And once it's categorical that you are there to assist, it means you cannot act. That is why Ministers of State, when they are not there, their deputies are not allowed to act. Another minister will have to come and act. But when you go and look at Article 256, which talks about a Deputy Regional Minister, it says that the President appoints a Deputy Regional Minister to perform such functions as the President may determine. So you see, the two are not the same. But the minority leader then, the member, they are both lawyers. They say it was unconstitutional, the President has erred and all that. But you go and look clearly at the laws and you see there's a clear distinction. In the case of Deputy Regional Ministers, the President assigns you to the work that as he determines, so he can let you. But in the case of 79, you are there to assess, so you cannot act. That is just a small deviation to let you know how sometimes politicians can, when an issue come up, can fire and then later they'll get to realize they were, at a loss. And I'm sure very soon, just as it happened in this matter, very soon they'll come to the reality. Deputy speakers are members of parliament, and there cannot be any law.
Honorable, you haven't answered my question.
Yeah, that is the way forward. I'm talking about the way forward.
Honorable,
I'm saying that
in a peculiar situation where we have a hung parliament today, where standing orders, constitution do not directly answer the questions that we have and will have potentially going forward.
The constitution answers the question.
Honorable,
the constitution answers the question. And in article, what is it? Article 1(2) of the constitution, what is it? It talks about it talks about any law that is not consistent with the constitution is void. Now, if you make any regulation or any rule that is not consistent with the national constitution, it's void. And I'm saying that the constitution says the Speaker of Parliament has no original or custom vote because he's not a member of Parliament. The constitution doesn't bar any Deputy Speaker of Parliament from voting because he's a member of Parliament. And I have said that show me any article in the constitution as we sit here that says that the Deputy Speaker cannot vote. So why do you go and make standing orders that are contrary to the constitution? Or the 109 is contrary, is inconsistent with the constitution.
This evening.
So the Supreme Court is spot on.
Honorable, our conversation this evening.
And I'm surprised that people are saying that it's bizarre.
Honorable, our conversation this evening has led me, honestly, to the conclusion that this issue is not a simple one.
It's a simple one.
It's really not a simple one.
How do you explain that?
And I'm staying here.
I am telling you that.
A member presiding at a sitting, a member presiding at a sitting, in essence, is the Speaker.
That's what I was telling you.
In essence, is the Speaker.
It's not the Speaker. It's not the Speaker. A member presiding is not the Speaker. Otherwise, go and look at Article 95 and what it says there about the Speaker. Go and look at Article 96 and what it says about a Deputy Speaker. Honorable, that is why it's
the Supreme Court has ruled.
Listen.
Honorable, the Supreme Court has ruled.
I'm telling you,
Honorable,
because we want Ghanaians to be clear.
I don't want us to go back to these arguments. Let's move ahead.
The NDC deliberately is trying to poison the minds of Ghanaians that the Supreme Court has a certain interest and has given a biased ruling, which is not true. They have ruled in consistent with the constitution. because there is no part of the constitution that bars a deputy speaker from voting. Anybody should show me. So why do you go and make a provision in a standard order, which is a subsidiary legislation to the constitution? And the constitution is very clear that any law made which is inconsistent with the constitution is void. So if you make standing order 109, which is inconsistent with the constitution, because the constitution does not bar deputy speakers from voting. And now earlier on, it also asks you, I have a litany of cases in Nigeria, in Kenya, in all over the world. A member of parliament or of an assembly has the right to vote, either an original vote or a custom vote. There is nowhere in the world where a member elected as a representative of the people is barred from voting. There's no way. Show me one country, because you are presiding, you are denied the right to vote. But in Ghana, our peculiar case is that the speaker is not a member of parliament, so he is barred from voting, and that is what is provided in Article 104.
Honorable, we've already done
this. So what is the difficulty? Now the way forward is that the Supreme Court has made it clear.
Right.
The last time the first deputy speaker wanted to vote, this people did Choboy. So he didn't go. They did Choboy. Now the matter has been settled.
Right.
The Supreme Court says that the deputy speakers are entitled to vote. So as a parliament, we are now clear. It was ambiguous because some of us understood it, that deputy speakers are members of parliament and have the right to vote. Others didn't understand. Now we have gone before the Supreme Court, right, and they have clarified. And I am happy that in Article 2 of the Constitution, which talks about enforcement of the Constitution, and in that article from 1 to 4, it gives clear directions as to how interpretation of the law should be done, and when it is interpreted, how it should be enforced. So once the Supreme Court has spoken, let me read 2.4, Article 2.4. It says that failure to obey or carry out the terms of an order or direction made or given under Clause 2 of this article constitutes a high crime under this Constitution, and shall, in the case of the President or the Vice President, constitute a ground. So if the Supreme Court makes an order and you decide to disobey it, it constitutes high crime. So now that the Supreme Court has ordered that members of parliament, deputy speakers are entitled to vote, the next time we're having sitting and there is voting, and first or second deputy speaker wants to vote, whether sitting on the chair or not, and Suhini comes there, he's my friend. Now you go to prison, I'll come and be greeting him there because it's high crime. The way forward is clear.
No,
you have already you've spoken.
No, I haven't spoken on my way forward. No, you spoke. You spoke on the way forward.
Are you the host?
No.
Are you the host?
If you come, I'll come again.
No problem. So
the way forward is clear, as provided in Article 2 of the Constitution, that the Supreme Court has the power to interpret the Constitution, and when they interpret the Constitution, citizens and every Ghanaian must obey. And when you fail to obey, high crime.
Thank you, Honorable.
So the next time I see you,
he's going straight to jail.
You see, when I go to Parliament, you know what I'm going to do.
What are you going to do?
If they are going to do anything, I have to go to their side and try to hold him, because I wouldn't want him to go near. I don't want you to go to prison.
You see, let me answer his question. Yes, right. I mean, let me answer his question. He says that we should show him in this Constitution where a deputy speaker. No, I just a quick one. Where a deputy speaker is supposed to is barred from voting. Now I want him to show me in this Constitution where a presiding member, a person presiding, is permitted to vote. Show me.
We are in trouble.
You see, no, it's not trouble.
The person presiding is not permitted. There's nowhere in this Constitution where a person presiding is permitted to vote.
No, when you're talking, I didn't come in. Please, I want to explain. I didn't come in. I waited for you to finish. No, I haven't. I'm saying that there is no bill provision in this Constitution where a presiding officer in Parliament is permitted from voting.
Nowhere.
So he
in this constitution.
Honorable,
I'm asking you something.
That's aside.
Honorable, what's
No,
the
let me just answer this one.
The way forward. The way forward. No. Listen, the way forward. The way forward is that. Please. Be a gentleman. Be the gentleman that you are. You are not being yourself this evening. I don't know why you have eaten. You see, he talked about Choboy.
Right.
He has to understand something. That even as the Supreme Court ruling stands, even as we on the minority side are against the ruling and we think it is a flawed ruling, it is a vindication of the Choboy we did. Because law has no
defeated you.
Please. Law has no retrospective effect.
Right.
So at the time that we prevented the deputy speaker from voting, Standing Order 1093 is what we defended.
Right.
So even as the ruling stands, even as we disagree with the ruling is a vindication of our Choboy. Because the Constitution enjoins us to prevent people from doing unlawful things.
But in that moment, the Constitution had not ruled it null and void.
Exactly. And so it was the law.
Okay.
And so what we did was very patriotic, resisting the violation of the standing orders.
Absolutely.
So that is the way
now the Supreme Court has ruled.
Right.
There is an indication that the person who is going to, who went to the Supreme Court is going for a review.
The ruling is
we will be waiting for the review.
Right.
We'll be waiting for the review.
There's no review. Talk about what is there now.
But as we speak, subject to 110 of our Constitution, Parliament remains the master of its own procedures. And leadership... Parliament remains the master of its own procedures. Yes, listen, even tomorrow...
sovereignty vis-a-vis...
No, I am saying, yes,
Supreme law.
That will be determined. I am saying, Parliament remains the master of its own rules, because 110 says that we can, subject to this Constitution, determine how we want the procedures in the House to be governed. Right. And I'm saying that even tonight, leadership can meet and decide the procedure for tomorrow.
Right.
So I'm saying we will wait for the review. Yes, we will wait for the review.
Right.
But as members who belong to caucuses, we'll continue to liaise with our caucus leaders. We are on the minority side, some of the best lawyers trained in some of the best schools.
Right.
Around the world. Dominic Ayini, Mahama Yelga and others, Harvard trained. They who are celebrated, have won cases in this council, will advise us on the way forward. But as we speak,
we have the most,
even as we are against the Supreme Court ruling, our Choboy was vindicated, and the Supreme Court should have acknowledged and praised us for standing up to the attempt to violate the laws as at the time that the first deputy speaker attempted to violate it.
All right, so let me.
Okay, so our time is up.
Let me just a point. Listen.
2 seconds.
Now he says that there is no mention of deputy speakers.
Honorable,
I am saying you should show me in the Constitution where a presiding officer is permitted
when it
to
comes to
vote.
interpretation, if the Constitution expressly say Ama and doesn't mention Amidu, it means everything is limited to you.
Right.
So in this Constitution, it expressly mentioned the speaker. It doesn't mention deputy speaker. It means they are not affected. It means they are not affected. That is how the law is. Okay. That is how the law is interpreted.
I have told you that in this Constitution, it tells us the speaker or the deputy will preside. Yet you and I agree that any other member can preside.
Let me thank you both. Let me thank you both for an awesome job done this evening. I'm leaving this show better informed, better understanding the issues. I'm so appreciative of both of you. I love the way both of you came, very prepared with your constitutions, your standing orders and everything.
Pocket lawyers.
Educated us very, very well. I'm grateful. The viewers are grateful too. Let me say quickly, that I'm sorry that I can't read all of your messages. And there are a lot of them, but I promise that even as the show ends, I'm going to let, our honorables, have a look at some of these things. If it's important that we come back to the conversation, honorables, will we come back if it's important that we do?
Why not?
Absolutely. So I have enjoyed you. Thank you so much, honorables. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sending in your views and your comments. Interesting times ahead for Ghana. We only hope for the best for our constitution, for our democracy, and we hope that Ghana will be the better for all of these developments. Thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
whatever the occasion. With ATL, you can never be out of style. ATL, bringing facts to life.
Hello. What are you doing Tuesday to Friday, 7:30 to 9 o'clock p.m. every day? You should be watching The Couch. I'll tell you why. On Tuesday,